the Oddsbreaker. This is your UFC 209 before the bell. Wow. I mean, I can't say enough about that first Woodley and Thompson fight, right, Nick? I mean, that fight was crazy. And we got to see Thompson kind of figured out come the fifth round. He kind of figured out how to handle Woodley. It was a little crazy. Am I overhyped about the rematch of these two?
No, I mean, it has all the makings to be just as good the second time around. I mean, the striker versus grappler aspect, mixing in the striking ability and explosiveness of Woodley on the feet too. I mean, it's a great match throughout the entire fight. I mean, the drama, Woodley was that close to finishing a couple times. Thompson looked good in that fight. They both performed really well. I mean, so it was just two world-class fighters fighting for the belt. And I mean, just everything about that fight was perfect. And I think that even the way it ended, I think it was pretty accurate. Like the score being a draw. I mean, they even scored it right, which is rare these days, you know? So it was a good spot. And the rematch is definitely a thing that we all want to see and anticipate. It should be another battle. I mean, who knows how it plays out? You know, it's probably not going to play out the same. I bet you there's probably going to end up being a finish now, you know, this time around, because we're all expecting it to be another 5-round war, another competitive fight. So who knows? Maybe a first rounder one way or the other, but with our luck. But I hope it is another 5-round grueling war because that fight was awesome.
It was amazing to watch. I can't wait to see. I don't care if it goes 1 round, 30 seconds in the first round, the fight's over, or it's another 5-rounder. I can't wait to watch that fight. But first, we got to get a deep breakdown of really number 1 and number 2 contender. I mean, this is crazy, all right? Khabib Nurmagomedov and Tony Ferguson. Of course, Khabib is number 1. Tony Ferguson is number 2. Tony, I think, is on a 9-fight win streak. Khabib is 24-0. Like, he's just crushing people. And this is truly a championship fight. This is number 1 versus number 2 in the weight class. I gotta like the way Khabib's coming out against Conor McGregor. He's calling him a fake champ. You know, he's calling him a paper champ, and he's like he's the real champ. Like he's already taunting for the big fight. If he beats Tony, does he deserve to have the big fight? Yes, of course he's next in line. Like I get that from the rankings, but does he deserve a big money fight with Conor McGregor?
Yeah, I think so. Because, I mean, even just before this fight here, what he just did to Michael Johnson, man, it was so impressive. Michael Johnson is a stud. You know, I mean, he is definitely a tough out. I mean, especially on the feet. And Michael Johnson had some success early on in that fight, but his takedown defense is legit. And you saw what Nurmagomedov was able to do. He ended up getting the fight to the floor, and he beat – I mean, that was a beating he really put on Johnson. That was brutal, honestly. And then the finish that he had was amazing too. So Khabib just really proved a point there because nobody's ever done that to Michael Johnson quite like that, like dominate him, just beat him up like that. And then also he ragdolled RDA and won a clear decision when he fought RDA. And RDA was a recent champion, you know, I mean, he just lost a strap, but he definitely was worthy of that belt at the time. And before actually he beat him before he won the belt. Khabib did. They fought, before that matchup. So he's right there. I mean, he proved that, hey, I beat your champion. I dominated him before at that time, or, at one point or another. And now he's just, he's climbed himself up the ladder. He's undefeated. He has an impressive resume. And then you can't argue what Tony Ferguson's done either. So both these guys deserve to be there. And I do think if Khabib wins, he should get the shot at McGregor, honestly.
Yeah. And it needs to be a big hype, big money, big pay-per-view card. Like it needs to be a big hype. I think this is really going to prove whether or not Conor now can go into pound for pound one of the best fighters ever if he can beat a guy like Khabib or Tony for that matter. If Tony wins this fight, Tony deserves it. Obviously, everyone knows I'm a huge fan of both these guys. I really love the way Tony's come on his last 9 fights. So that's why I'm like, this is a super huge fight for the weight class. I even believe because of how amazing the first fight between Woodley and Thompson went, people kind of overlooking this co-main event. This is actually the 2 of the best fights you could possibly ever have are 1 and 2 in any weight class. And we're having 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 2 times in a row fight each other. Of course, Conor, the best fighter in the weight class right now, is not in the co-main event. But this is absolutely the top 4 guys that you can absolutely have compete against each other or doing it right now in the main event and co-main event on this card. But I got to think the line is leaning towards Khabib because he is the champ, but he's also, he's come out and said, I whispered in Mike's ear, I have a lot of respect for Michael Johnson, but I haven't, he had him in the Kimura, and he's like, you have to tap him or break it. You have to tap him, I'm going to break it. And he's saying, now this is what he said. He said he whispered into Mike's ear, and Mike said, get him a tap. Like he's just stuck now. And he goes, but Tony, I'm going to break his arm. Like I'm going to break the arm off him. And Tony comes back and goes, he might break it. Doesn't matter. I'm gonna hit him with it, knock him unconscious with it. Like he's gonna break my arm. I'm still gonna knock him unconscious with my same arm. So these guys are 2 tough cats. Line's leading towards Khabib though, or am I wrong?
Yeah, you're right, and I agree with everything you just said there. I mean, it's amazing, right? But Habib Nurmagomedov right now is -170 at 5 dimes. The comeback on Ferguson is +150, and it's been going back and forth a little bit. I mean, I opened it around 2-1. It got bet down, and then it got bet back up a little bit. Now it's coming back down. So of course, the public hype. Both these guys have a lot of it, and they deserve it. I mean, they have the skill to be where they're at. So this is one of those rare occasions where the hype kind of justifies both fighters, and they have a tremendous amount of respect. I mean, from the bettors out there, a lot of dog action has come in on Ferguson. I mean, a lot of people believe that he has all the tools to finish Habib before he gets, before he kind of grinds him out. On the other hand, you have all the people that are backing Habib right now thinking, hey, he's the best wrestler maybe in all of UFC. I mean, how dominant he is getting the fight to the floor and just grinding people out right now. I mean, he's been amazing doing so, and they think he can do it again, and so they're laying the juice on it. So there's a heavy two-way action coming in on both guys right now, and it's going to continue to be that way, and both of them deserve it. So it is a tough matchup because, I mean, stylistically, we've seen in the past Ferguson get taken down, get control a little bit. I mean, Castillo sticks out more than anybody, and a lot of fans are going to kind of repeat that same thing. They're going to say, yeah, I mean, it's hard to get that image of Castillo kind of, arguably winning that fight against Ferguson not long ago, and he was able to get the fight to the floor and kind of control him like that. And Habib is that much better at getting the fight to the floor than Castillo. But that being said, Ferguson kind of made some mistakes that, I mean, it wasn't his best performance, put it that way. And since that time, he's really looked good, and he does have good takedown defense. So there's a lot to be said about this fight, and it is intriguing because if Habib is able to do what he does best, he's going to win the fight. But if obviously Ferguson is capable of finishing along the way, or if he's going to sprawl and brawl, it's going to get really interesting, and he can win the fight.
Do you think this fight's going to get done before the end of the 5 rounds? Do you think it's going to end up being a long, drawn-out decision?
I could see it ending either way. I mean, early, you know what I mean? Either way, or a drawn-out decision. I think if it ends inside, it's Ferguson probably going to get the finish along the way, catching a choke, even maybe possibly by knockout. And I think, honestly, if Habib wins a fight, he's going to win by grinding him out. And Ferguson's a hard guy to stop. So that's what I mean. He's not lying when he told you, even if he does rip my arm off or break my arm, I'm going to hit him with it. Ferguson won't quit. I mean, he won't tap on that. I believe that he'll keep on fighting regardless of the spot that he's in. So it's going to be hard for Habib to actually finish Ferguson, but I think he can implement his work plan, his game plan, and just get him to the ground and kind of do what he does best. I think he does win a decision, honestly.
So Habib wins a decision, but Ferguson wins if there's an early ending.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the way it goes. If the fight ends early, it's probably Ferguson. If it goes to the cards, it's probably Habib, honestly. I think it's pretty common sense to think that way, and I think it probably plays out that way, honestly. So I do think that Habib kind of grinds him out and probably comes away with a decision. So should be a good fight, though. I'm looking forward to it.
And this fight is so hype. It's got so much stuff going on for it. Unfortunately, I'm still not hype on the interim title fights. I don't like these interim titles. Like, why do we keep having these things? Obviously, it's from our old school days, coming over from boxing, trying to figure out where MMA's rules were and regulations and how the sport is actually going to be handled. So you start coming with these interim titles, and in boxing, it makes sense. A guy doesn't fight for a year, you strip him of the title. If he's not going to fight because he's hurt, whatever, so you don't want to strip him, okay, then you make an interim title. He comes back from his injury, then he's got to fight the interim title, and the champ have got to unify the belt. So in boxing, it kind of made sense, and that mindset made sense. But why is there an interim title now? All of a sudden, these guys aren't fighting for the belts. It's not been a year. Like, the belt hasn't been hamstrung for a year. It just got contested. So why are we doing these things? It's like it's a marketing ploy.
It is a marketing ploy, exactly that.
Everybody's going to have an interim title, which kind of diminishes the importance of this fight. Whether this fight is for a title or not, this fight is going to be an amazing fight. But they're kind of putting the interim title on it. Oh, yeah, it's a title fight. It's a title fight. Yeah, but it would have been a great fight if you guys didn't do that to it. It still would have been the number one contender fight. It still would have been the two best guys in the weight class fight. It didn't make a difference. So I kind of feel like the interim, these marketing ploys, to me as a diehard fan and an old school fan, it's not selling me. It's not selling me on it at all. Is it selling you?
I agree. Yeah.
Okay.
No. I agree with you completely. And I think most fans that are listening out there right now agree with you as well. It's kind of a joke. I mean, now, again, I do respect the fact that these guys deserve it. I mean, they're championship caliber. So the guys that are competing, definitely are up there and they deserve to wear the strap or whatever. And it's a shame that they're not getting a real shot at the belt. So I agree with it. But it's a gimmick marketing ploy, like you said. And from a business perspective, you can't. I guess I can understand the UFC kind of going that route too with it. Try to spice it up a little bit, try to sell the fight a little bit better. And it probably does work to the casual fan. You know what I mean? They're like, oh, it's a title fight on top of it. But again, the people that have been watching the sport, the diehards, like you said out there, they're not going to get. You know what I mean? They're not going to get fooled by a lot of that gimmick in the marketing ploy like that. So, but everybody loves a fight regardless. So it's a win-win situation for sure.
Well, let's move on to the main event, man. T. Wood and Wonderboy Thompson. I mean, obviously, rematches are tough no matter what. Most rematches, if I'm correct, and correct me, fix me if I'm wrong here, Nick, they always end up, no matter what happened in the first fight, it always ends up being some kind of decisive victory in the rematch where it doesn't go the entire distance. It always ends up going quick. Not quick, but earlier than a decision. And it's always harder for the champion because he's the one always being attacked. The challenger always has the better shot of getting the belt in the rematch, especially after a draw or a loss. So Thompson has got to be in for most stats. You got to think it. Okay, Thompson's going to win this fight. You've got to kind of look at it and analyze it. Hey, Thompson's going to win this fight. But the betting public has got to be laying money on time, which makes him the favorite, right?
No, actually, Thompson opened the favorite the first time they fought as well, and he was, it was a close line, but he was the favorite the first time they fought, and he's honestly favored again. And I mean, this time around, and right now the current line, there's been a little bit of action coming in his way, but it's minus 170. It's the same line that we just read with Nurmagomedov a minute ago, but Thompson's also minus 170. The comeback on Woodley is at plus 150 as well, and another spot that's been bouncing back and forth a little bit, but it opened closer to a pick'em. It opened minus 130, minus 135 for Stephen Thompson, and now it's kind of gotten bet up a little bit. But there is, again, another situation where you're going to get a ton of action on Woodley because a lot of people feel that out of the first fight, he can make the adjustments a little bit better. He had success with his wrestling game. He didn't stick to that wrestling along the way. And he was able to, obviously with his knockout power, do some damage on the feet and almost end it that way. So I think the adjustments for Woodley might be a tad bit easier or a little bit more confidence right now in his game. He understands what he has to deal with a little bit more. So I think you're going to see a ton of action continue to come in on Woodley because it seems like the overall public opinion out there is actually towards Woodley. A lot of people think Woodley's going to win the rematch and defend his strap. Now, on the other hand, I think there's probably less opinion on Thompson winning this fight, but it might be more accurate, like you said, honestly. I mean, I've been going back and forth on this fight as well because I agree with what some of the, I guess the majority of the people are saying out there about Woodley. I can't see it. It was competitive. I mean, more competitive probably than I thought. I thought Thompson would win the first fight a little bit cleaner than he did. I mean, obviously he didn't win it, but you know what I'm saying? Like he would win it by a cleaner margin. And he didn't. So it was a little bit more competitive. So I do understand what people are thinking out there, but Thompson, if he doesn't get clipped, doesn't get dropped, I think he probably keeps his fight up on the feet, and he probably outpoints Woodley along the way. I do think that he is the better striker, and it probably stays upright. So if that's the case, he's probably going to win the strap. It might be competitive, and you never know. You can never count Woodley out. So it's a tough fight to bet right now, especially at minus 170, man. I wouldn't lay 170 on Thompson, to be honest with you. No way. Not in this fight right now. Maybe closer to where it opened, minus 130, 140, I can understand it a little bit more. But as it climbs up, no, I wouldn't touch it.
And then you look at my interview with Thompson here on MMA Oddsbreaker, and he talks about, the first round, he barely even started. He was kind of trying to conserve energy to get himself through 5 rounds. He wasn't sure how much energy he was going to be expending. You saw the beating he takes in the 4th round, how he comes back from it, kind of maintains, and then he wins, and then he dominates and gets the best control in the 5th round. So his shape's there. But you can't ever count out the champ. And this is the thing with T. Wood. The man knows he finds a way. Victory. He finds a way to find victory all the time. He always goes in there and goes after it. He always finds a way he makes good adjustments in between rounds. He makes good adjustments during the round. And really, the big deciding factor for me was the fact that the last time these two fought, Chris Weidman was on the card, and that's Thompson's brother-in-law, and he watched him get starched watched him get the crap kicked out of him backstage, and now has to go out and fight. In front of a huge crowd for a championship belt. And he said it affected him. Like, it really did bother him to see that stuff happen. He's trying not to watch it, trying not to pay attention to it, trying not to let him affect it, but it makes him affected. And I really think that T. Wood does a much better job of letting all that exterior stuff not bother him no matter what happens. You literally could hit him in the face with a bat as he's walking down the runway, and he wouldn't even care. He's like, okay, I just get in the face with the bat, whatever, I'll deal with it in a second. He'll go in there and beat the guy in the cage, come back out and beat you up after. He's got a mission. He's just very, very focused. I think if it comes down to focus, T. Wood's going to win this fight. Again, I don't think this fight is going to be a finish. I think both men have developed such a great way, and they have such a great fortitude for fighting that they're not going to quit no matter what. They're going to find a way to maintain and find a way to handle. And it's literally going to be one of those things. You're either going to have to knock the other guy out where he falls flat on his face, or you're going to have to break something so bad the ref has to come in there and stop it. These guys are not going to tap. They're not going to quit. It's going to be a situation the ref is going to have to get involved, or the bell's going to stop the fight. That's just what's going to happen. I really, really am surprised that more the betting public hasn't been leaning towards T to begin with, just because that he is the champ. And a lot of the casual fans always look at the champ to be the better one of the two. And so it surprised me how I'm just kind of leaning towards Stephen Thompson a little bit. Is that more because Stephen tends to get a little bit more hype behind him because he does a little bit more media and he's a little bit more savvy than in when it comes to the entertainment side of it? Do you think that's why the fans are looking at him more?
No, I think they just think stylistically. I mean, if you look at it, again, throw that first fight out of the equation. I mean, it's hard to do because of the way it all played out and stuff. But I mean, Thompson stylistically is a tough matchup for Woodley because he does have good takedown defense and he is the better striker and he can outpoint. I mean, if you look back at Thompson's fight, or I should say Woodley's fight with even Rory McDonald was able to control the distance well, and he was able to basically clearly outpoint Woodley to win that fight. On the feet, Woodley wasn't able to get the fight down. So against guys like that are a little bit longer and that are able to control distance. Now, even though Rory McDonald's game is obviously different than Stephen Thompson. I mean, Stephen Thompson throws more kicks. He's more of a karate kickboxing stylist than Rory. Rory was using his hands, utilizing that jab a lot better. So it's a little bit different, but still a lanky fighter with skill, with great technique. It's just a tough matchup if you can't get him to the ground, you know what I mean, and dominate him there, which Woodley, obviously, in the first round, he had a tremendous amount of success doing so. So I do think he's going to try to get the fight to the ground. But the more you wrestle, I mean, you know better than anybody, I mean, it has to wear you out, though, more. It's going to take a toll on you, right? So if he goes for takedowns in round 2, he goes for takedowns in round 3, and even if he's successful, he might gas out a little bit sooner than he did last fight. So I don't know if it was a little bit more pacing himself to go, because his gas tank was pretty good in that 5-round war with Thompson. And back in the day, we were all saying that that might be an issue for Woodley. I mean, he tends to slow down as the fight goes, and his gas tank is always a question mark. So he proved that he can go in a grueling fight. He could push through, tough it out, and go 5 strong. But, I mean, he didn't wrestle as much as we thought he would, or most people thought he would. So it is definitely an intriguing fight. If he decides to wrestle, he might gas himself a little bit more. There's a lot to throw into this factor. So I do think that Thompson is the deserving favorite in this fight. But yeah, again, I mean, you just don't know which way the public's going to go with these things. So I think it's just out of respect, and a lot of people truly believe that Thompson is just a better fighter. And it's not the casual fan that's betting Thompson right now. It's more of the smart guys that, sharp guys that have been out there, betting the fights and know the sport well, that they're willing to lay a little bit of juice, I think, on that side and take the risk because they do believe he's the better fighter and he should win this fight. Now, again, with more of the casual fans thinking he's a champ and he's the underdog, so I think you're going to see more public action, casual action go on Woodley, and you're going to see sharper action go on Thompson. So the books are going to kind of side with a sharper action a little bit. Now, that's not to say that you're not going to see any sharp action go Woodley's way, especially if the line keeps on climbing. You know what I mean? I mean, this is a numbers game completely. So if the line starts getting out of whack, of course Woodley has a chance to win his fight. I mean, there's going to be value, and at plus 150, honestly, I mean, that's getting pretty decent right there. There might be a time, plus 150, plus 160, definitely some time to think about throwing some money down on Woodley because he can win this fight. So it gets to a certain point, there's going to be some value. You'll see some sharp action coming in on Woodley, but I think early on when the price is low, more of the sharp action coming in on Thompson, and that's kind of why it's staying where it is right now. But who knows? I mean, again, the casual fans are going to probably back Woodley more. They're going to get some large bets, I'm sure, on fight day coming his way as well. So we could see the line drop down just a tad as well.
Man, both these fights are so amazing, and of course you can check out the premium podcast from MMA Oddsbreaker about the rest of the card. I mean, we got Mark Hunt and Overeem opening up the pay-per-view section, and you got Rashad Evans and Kelly in the middle of the main event. This is a former champ, is now in the middle of the main card. This is incredible. This whole fight, top to bottom, I'm really super impressed with how they put it together. Of course, it's in Vegas, so it's one of those things that's going to be highly watched at home, but highly watched in studio as well, or in the arena as well. I can't say enough about the matchmaking on this one. This is what a great set of fights for us. What's the other fight you're most interested in seeing that's not the main event or co-main event?
Yeah, they did a great job matching this card. And you know what? Let me say, it was kind of needed right now because there's been a lot of complaints so far this year from the fans out there saying, man, what's the UFC doing since the new ownership? They haven't been putting those awesome cards together yet. So now they can step back and look at this card and see that they're delivering a little bit. You know what I mean? So they needed to have a strong card, and I think they did deliver. So that's a good sign. For me, it's Tamer and Veneta probably, going back to your question here. That's an interesting a fight for sure. And the public, in sharp action, public action, a lot of action coming in Venetta's way recently. And I think a lot of people are underestimating Tamer, to be honest with you. I mean, he's not an easy out at all. He's got decent takedown defense, and he's a tremendous striker. So even though Venetta is the more well-rounded fighter, he's got the hype behind him, and it's justified. From what we've seen so far from Venetta, man, is it justified. I mean, if you look at it, he came in on short notice, fought Ferguson, who is right now the co-main event that we were saying he's getting that interim title shot, and almost beat him. I mean, he was super close of finishing that fight in his debut in a UFC, fighting a guy like that. So then he follows that up with getting an impressive knockout win. Venetta's legit. I mean, and he could come out here and maybe he does it again. He just, has a highlight reel knockout or, a dominant performance, a dominant win. But the price right now is ridiculous. Minus 400 for Venetta, and Tamer's at plus 325. Tamer is way better than plus 325 on that price tag. So I do think that you're going to probably end up seeing some sharp action hit Tamer by fight day, and the line should drop a little bit. But it depends because, again, a lot of fans believe that Venetta's the next big thing. So this is a good test for him. I'm surprised kind of the UFC went this route because I think if they're trying to kind of push Venetta over with the fans, get him a little bit more hype and just – get him in a better spot for later on down the road, for marketing and all that stuff. Tamer's not exactly the guy you want to give him. So I'm surprised they kind of matched him up this way. So, yeah, I think Tamer could be a live dog, honestly, right now at plus 325. I think the line's getting a little absurd. So I'm looking forward to see how that plays out because if Venetta dominates and wins, man, I mean, that's going to be a really solid win for him. And then all the hype and everything's going to be a little bit more justified. And the puzzle's kind of getting to get put together a little bit more for him. You know what I mean? Because there's a lot of question marks with some of these guys. I mean, they come into the UFC, they win a couple fights. Everybody thinks they're the next huge thing. And sometimes those guys don't amount to nothing. It's too much, But I don't think that's the case for Venetta. I do think he's legit. And I think if he does go out there and perform well against Tamer, I mean, that's just another solid notch on his resume, So that's a fight I'm looking forward to probably the most.
All right, that's it for this edition of Before the Bell. That was UFC 209 breakdown. We'll be seeing you here in the next couple of weeks, guys. Amazing. This fight card, top to bottom, is incredible. You've got to watch. If you're not watching from the very beginning, you're missing out. Thanks for stopping in. We'll talk to you later.